Okay, here we have, oops, Peter Rabbit. How do we draw him? We're going to paint him in acrylic, which you'll see later on. But I just want to show you how to draw him sitting up like this. So, if you draw the head, it's a bit like, what shape does it look like? Don't really know how to describe that shape. It's a pinched circle. And then if you draw an oval underneath, like that, and you can add your ears to the top in whatever shape you want them. Don't forget to put the insides in, so the inner ear and the fold at the bottom. Then he's got a sort of a tear shape there, and that will give you an idea where the nose and the mouth will come, and also where the eyes sit, because the eyes are in a particular place on a rabbit. They're sort of on the side of the face. This one is just off at an angle, so you need to draw that one sitting slightly over. He's looking that way. So there go the eyes. Okay. And then you can put a mouth in, but they don't, normally the mouth is under here, and they do have a bit of a chin. Okay. And then obviously he's got clothes on. So his arms are coming up there and up there. So if you draw loosely the form, and then he's got a bulge that comes out there and one that comes out there. So that will give you the shape for the legs. And you can see the shape coming round there like that. And then if you just sort of flatten it off at the bottom and put those little feet in, then you've got more or less got it. All right. So the paws would come in here somewhere like that. Don't forget to put his sleeves in, and his coat comes down sort of about there. So my advice always, I mean, it more so with watercolour, not so much with acrylic, is to do your drawing on, oh sorry, you weren't able to see the feet there, is to do your drawing on a piece of cartridge paper and then transfer it onto your acrylic. If you're confident enough, then you can do it freehand directly onto the acrylic paper. But, you know, draw your loose shape, and then you can start thinking, right, do I need that bit to be a bit more pointed? Yeah, you can really sort of play with the shape. You can even sort of do a rough bit of shading just to describe the direction that the hairs lie in, because that's really useful, and that will help you with regard to painting, because you can paint the brush marks in the direction of the hair, and then it will help describe the fur. Okay, so then you can adapt things if you want the coat to come out here a bit more, and blah blah blah. The feet aren't quite the right shape, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's the basic shape for your rabbit. Once you're happy with it, you can trace it through or copy it through. You might be confident to go straight in and just draw it as it is. All right, hope you manage it. Okay, so once you've got your Peter Rabbit drawn out, you don't necessarily have to draw it out. You can just paint the wood and then paint over the Peter Rabbit in white. So you can do it either that way, or you can just paint around the rabbit. It's up to you really, which way round you do that. And then all I've got these little pots of paint that I've got from leftover mixes. Just mix up a series of colours, wood-like colours. You can follow mine or you can make up your own. And you need to get them moving. These are a bit dry, so I just need to put a bit of water in. If your paints are new, then you don't need to worry so much about watering your colours down. And all you need to do is apply a layer of paint. I'm just going to paint around my rabbit because he's already there, to your surface. And we want this to be quite thick. So pick the paint up, you can see how thickly that's going on. Round the ears, and with each section just apply a layer of paint like this. Make sure it's thick enough. Wipe it off your brush head. You can even swirl it on. Now you could just take a fairly dry acrylic brush, and you could, I've got a bit of a lump there. You could just run your brush across, and by doing that you will create lines on your piece of wood. However, if you have got, really I should have done this in advance and cut myself out a series of bits of card and then cut little triangles. They don't have to be the same. You can leave gaps in between them like that. You could have long strips. I hope you can see what I'm doing. So you've got a jagged edge like this, and then you literally, so make sure you've done this in advance rather than doing it in front of you like I just did. And then you literally just sort of press the card down and then drag it along your paint like that, and you will get lines, and lines that look like wood. Okay, you can even just take small sections and put in some more details like this. You could even put some sort of circular marks in, you know, so have a bit of fun with it. And what you want to do is do the same thing with each layer. Okay, so rather than me laboriously painting these in, I'll just show you closer. Can you see that? It's actually quite great. And you can also put different colours down, and you can also repeat it. So if you thought, oh, actually I want a lighter section here, you could wait for that to dry, put some more paint on and drag it about. But it's a really fun technique. So have a go. I will do the rest. I'll put it on time lapse and then you can see it happening quickly. Okay, so I've got my acrylic paper with my rabbit drawn on it, and I've painted all the wooden strips, and now they're more or less dry. I've got a clean pot of water, I've got a paper plate to mix colours on, I've got a series of paint colours, and you can mix these using greys and blacks and whites and browns and creams and yellows. Just have fun and play with colour, okay? You might just squeeze them straight out of the tube, it's up to you. But we're going to work, now with acrylic, you can either work dark to light or light to dark. in watercolour you work light to dark because you can't work light colours over dark colours. However, with acrylic, and the reason why people like it is because you can. If you make a mistake, you can paint over it. If you put some dark colour down, then the white will paint over the top of it. So it's the strength of colour that's beneficial. So I'm starting here. I've got a really cheap old round brush. Use what you've got, and I'm just going to put some white paint onto the body of this rabbit and onto the hands and the paws, should I say. And I'm going to use this white base as a almost like a mixing palette, really. It keeps the underneath wet enough so that you can mix and blend and get your colours on, and it not to dry out on you too quickly, because one of the difficulties with white with acrylic is the fact that it dries out quite quickly, and often people find that it's difficult to blend and difficult to work with. So you can do this section by section. If you're not quick like I am, you can do it bit by bit. You can do the feet, and then you can do the lower body, and then the upper body. It's up to you. But you can see that's still wet, and it will stay wet. I'm going to leave the head till later. It will stay wet for a little while, but not forever. So don't work slowly. Work quickly if you can, and pick up another colour and start to just add it into the areas on your rabbit. So you want it to be furry, so keep the paint thick and keep it moving so it looks lumpy and furry. You can add darker colours, so like over here we've got a little bit of darkness, so add the colour in, let it blend with what's going on underneath, and just allow it to mix and create those. Like these paws are a completely different colour to the rest of the painting. Okay, so down here it's quite dark down there. The feet are darker, the paws. Beatrix Potter has worked her magic on me. I really do think these are humans. She dresses them up. I'm teaching my young Chinese students at the moment, and they're learning about Beatrix Potter, so it was quite apt that we were doing this actually. But they're really, you know, loving the way that Beatrix Potter humanised all of her creatures, so that's quite fun. Tiny bit of red tone there. I don't know whether that's, oh yeah, that is. Let's just take a bit more. Just add a little bit of darkness on that side. Remember to keep the lines. The reason why we're working with an old acrylic brush is so that the lines remain fluffy on the outside, on the edges. So rather than them being smooth, they automatically, the brush marks make your rabbit feel furry. Okay, so there's a little bit of yellowy tone in here, so I'm going to take, I've only got what I've got in front of me. I haven't got any yellow ochre, but you know, in the same way you will have paints, colours that you have in your set that I don't have, and vice versa. So just work with what you've got. If you haven't got exactly the same colours to match the picture, just go for the closest. And in the same respect, you know, if you haven't got the colours that I'm using, just use what you've got. Okay, don't worry about these things. Okay, so now I've got my main body of colour on. I'm going to start with the face. And by that time, that should have dried out a bit, which means I can work into it. So the face comes down, it goes out. Don't use too much water with your paint. Comes out into the cheek, and then it goes across like that. And the ears as well, don't forget the ears. So you can see how well the acrylic covers the paint that's underneath. As long as it's dry, it won't blend. It's so useful, this paint. And again, think about how the direction of the hairs are going out that way, like that. And they're coming down this way, like that, from the top. So all the directional marks left by the brush marks on your brush will help enormously. So go with them. Go with the contours that are already there and put them in. So I'm just repeating the same exercise. I'm going to take a bit of that yellow and put that in around. Go, make sure you use the right directional brush marks. And if it starts coming through like it does there, it just means that you haven't got enough paint on. Just cover it up with a bit more paint, like that. And then we need some darker colour. Let's go with a bit of darker colour in here. And I'm working with a big brush to stop myself from fiddling too much with this initial work that I'm doing. So have confidence with your big brush strokes. Okay, so that's the big brush strokes done. Now, yes. Oops, I could go. Now, I'm going to take a detailed acrylic brush. And if you haven't got one of these, then you can use a watercolour brush, but your watercolour brush will get damaged by it. If you wash it off straight away once you're finished with it, you'll have a chance of being able to use your brushes again. But in the main, if you use watercolour brushes for acrylic paint, it really doesn't, they don't then perform very well for your watercolours. So it's always best to have separate watercolour and separate acrylic brushes. Okay, so I'm just going in now. I'm just going to put some finer details in with my detail brush. And again, I'm going to use the white paint. The white paint's underneath and it still hasn't dried. So it's allowing me to paint a little bit in a little bit more detail. So again, but we don't want it to be too detailed because, you know, it is fur. It needs to be rough. Don't over blend it. Don't over detail it. We want it to be fairly simple. But in the same respect, we do want to be able to understand what's going on. So, you know, make it as detailed as you want it to be. If you want to go mad and really work on every single feather, then you can. So those are the paws there. We've got furriness there. We've got a little bit of furriness coming off here. Again, work outwards from inside the body out so that you get your furry feeling. Just going to blend that in a bit because that's standing out a bit much. Okay. And keep going until you're happy with what you've got. Okay. So I'm just gonna put a little bit. I'm going to work with the yellow. I'm going to put a little bit of yellow up here, like this, because these ears are quite yellow in tone, and we've got to put the outside of that one in. Okay, so let's get in here. Yeah, we're okay. Bit more yellow in here. Bit more yellow. I think the next thing I want to do is I want to get in some of the features. I'm just going to paint these little paws in a bit of yellow, like that, just so that they stand out a bit more than what they are doing. Okay, let's get some features in. Wash your brush off really well, and we'll put some black in those eyes. So I've got some black here. I'm hoping that it's still dry, wet enough to use. Yes, it is. So you can use black, you can use dark brown, but make sure it's nice and fluid, because we want to paint those eyes in. I can rest on here because it is dry, but not on, and the eyes are right on the edge of Peter Rabbit's face, so get those in. Now the underpainting is helping me there, oops, because it's still wet, so it's giving me the chance to paint those eyes in. Now this eye is slightly browner than the other one. I'm just going to put a little bit of black in, and then I'm going to take some brown. Let's have a see, that one will probably do it. Just a bit of brown. I'm going to put the brown in like that. Make it a little bit bigger. I'll put a touch of brown in there. Just going to curve it round like that. There. Okay, I'm going to put a blob of white back in there in a minute. While I'm here, I'm just going to take a little bit of black, and I'm just going to put the fold in there, and the fold in there, like that. It comes down that side like that, and then the nose and the mouth. So down, a bit darker, I think. If you prefer to do this in a brown rather than a black, I'm just really doing it this colour so you can see, and then you can put his mouth in. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to carry on. I'm going to carry on, just keep adding more colour, more detail. Don't do the whiskers until the end, and I'm going to put the rest on time lapse so that you can see me building it up. Okay. Okay, so here we are. I'm pretty much finished. I'm just using my detail brush. I'm just going round, and I'm trying to see all the little hairs that are standing out that need extra darkening, and also where the shadows are, like underneath here needs to be blacker. So I'm just going to put some more black in there. The main problem with acrylic is that if it's wet underneath, it tends to sort of slip around a bit. So if you find that your colours are sort of not laying down as they should do, then just leave it to dry off a bit and then come back to it, because once it's dry, you can put on, like I'm just doing here, extra yellow, and it will sort of stand out a little bit more than if it's wet underneath, especially with detail. So just remember that that will help with your painting if colours are not sitting down like they should be doing. So I'm just putting a few more highlights around his head. I'm just going to put a little bit, see this is very wet and it won't take the paint, that side does, but this side is a little bit slippery. So just, like I said, just hold off if it's becoming messy, and just pop in and have a cup of tea and then come back. I have also got some white here, and I'm going to put a dot back. There's a dot here, well there's quite a large dot there already, but I need to put the dot back in this eye. That's better. And then with the white as well, you can go back in, get it so it comes to a fine point on your brush. If it doesn't, just put it on your paper plate or your palette and just mix a little bit of water in and roll the brush around like that, and then it should come back to a point. All right, so white back in those sections where it's got a little bit dark. You can put some highlights on his coat. The coat that I've got is a little bit thin, as in the colour that I've used, it's a cerulean blue, and because it's a bit transparent, it's a bit thin. So you might want to go back in, once you've put one layer down, you might want to go back in and just add some more colour, add a second coat. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add some white, and hopefully that will be good enough. So the final stage is to put in some whiskers. Now, this is really important. You need the white colour that you've got. I mean, they could be grey, they could be brown, you know. But I've got white here. Now, you definitely need a brush that comes to a good point. Let me just find one. Rummaging around in my brushes. Oh. No, I don't have one. I was looking for a rigger brush, but I don't have one for acrylic. I only have them for watercolour. So I've got a fine detail brush that comes to a really nice point here, and I'm going to try that first. I'm trying it on my painting. If you want to, you can try it on a scrap piece of paper so that you know that you're not going to make a mistake. Lean your hand down on the board, on the acrylic paper, whatever you're using, and then you're going to take the white and you're just going to put some whiskers on. Really, really, really important that you use a brush that comes to a point, because as you come off, you're going to lift. So you press and then lift, press, lift, like that. And don't go overboard. People tend to, and it's hard to do the ones on the left that's not your natural hand, opposite if you're left-handed. Press and lift. You can see that's a bit thick there. Press, lift, press, lift, press, lift. Just going to put a... So don't overwork that. You can also take some other colour, just mix it with the leftover white that you've got, make a pale brown or a pale grey, and just flick in some darker, slightly darker whiskers. But again, don't go mad. The more whiskers you've got, the worse it looks. So I'm going to leave that there. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it to dry. And then I will reassess whether I need to do anything else to it. Okay, you could go in, you could put dark lines across here, you could put some more details on the wood behind, but the subject is Peter Rabbit, so really you don't want too much detail in the background to sort of deflect from your subject, which is Peter Rabbit. Okay, you can also do this onto wood. You don't have to do it onto paper. If you've got some scrap wood, I mean, this is wood, you know, you can actually paint onto wood. No problem. Okay. What else? I think that's it. So like I said, the final image might have changed a little bit. I might just put some dark lines in and stuff like that. But, you know, that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you have a great Easter. And you can maybe share this with your friends with a happy Easter. Bit of writing or something like that. That'd be cool. I'm going to send this to my mum because she loves Beatrix Potter. Okay, thanks for joining in and good luck with it, and I'll see you next week. Bye.